Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. This nation moves to nationalize a huge gold mine. And I'm not talking about the Salivation Nation either. Let's explore. Indeed, gold being mined in foreign countries from foreign companies, well, it's not being taken to liken to some nations, and I'm talking about a story that is on Al-Jazeera.com, and we're talking about Kyrgyzstan, and they moved a nationalized gold mine run by a Canadian company. Now, consider the source for some of the information here. We kind of can sense a bias for sure, but there is some tensions between Kyrgyzstan and Canada's Centerra Gold. Simmer, as the president, a longtime critic of foreign ownership, effectively brings the Kumtor mine back into states' hands. Bishkek and Iskik-Kul region in Kyrgyzstan. In the early 90s, it was hoped that a large gold mine in eastern Kyrgyzstan near the Chinese border would lift the newly independent country's economy out of the shadows of Soviet central planning. But 30 years into its operation, Kumtor has for many come to symbolize some of the developing world's greatest ills: corruption, environmental degradation, and neo-colonial greed. In May, it became clear that dark clouds had gathered over Centerra Gold Mine Incorporated, a Canadian-registered company operating the high-altitude mine, 26% of which belongs to the Kyrgyz state. First, a court ruled that the mine had committed environmental violations by dumping mining waste on glaciers, a move that caused their gradual erosion and cost the state $3 billion. Soon after, the parliament backed a proposal of the Special Commission on Kumtor to introduce state management at the mine for 3 months. And here we can see that a lot of the work has come from the Isyuk-Kul region, which has some nice views, but very high altitude. On the 14th of May, President Sadir Japarov approved the plan, which effectively brought the mine back into state hands. Later, a number of high-profile politicians accused of financial crimes related to Kumtor were arrested. In response, Centerra Gold initiated binding arbitration proceedings against the government for what they viewed as a violation of mutual agreements. Its Kyrgyz units, Kumtor Gold Company and Kumtor Operating Company, applied for bankruptcy in a U.S. court, and the company says it will seek compensation from the government. In 1994, after the Kyrgyz people gained independence, and with their help, we began building the Kumtor gold mine with an initial life of 18 years. To this day, what we created together is something special that engineers from all over the world come to study, Scott Perry, Centerra's president and CEO, wrote in a statement. The seizure of the mine is based on false information and groundless allegations that undermine everything we have built together. We fear that the government's unjustified action will put thousands of well-paying jobs and businesses of hundreds of Kyrgyz suppliers at risk. And you can kind of see both sides of this, in my view, trying to look at it fairly from as objective point of view as possible. A foreign company coming in, it'd be nice if the Kyrgyz government maybe would support private enterprise from within their own borders and have a Kyrgyz company do this. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but anyways, if they would come in and create a mine, for sure, of course, obviously, and done in an environmentally responsible way. And so, essentially, the perception is reality for some, and pressure grew on Centerra after January's presidential elections, which saw Japarov sweep to victory after a campaign promising national revival. He had been designated to rule the country as interim president and prime minister following an uprising last October against political corruption. Well, there you go. in a disputed parliamentary election, the third upheaval since the country's independence. So it's not a very stable nation, for sure. And they want to control a huge gold operation. And it was gold that brought him to power. Months before winning a landslide, he was freed from prison, where he was serving an 11.5-year sentence for kidnapping a local official during one of his protests against Kumtor. Since 2013, he has been the main figure in the movement against foreign corporations he accuses of exploiting Kyrgyzstan's scarce resources. And you can see the massive scale of the mine in this photograph. That's about 13,123 feet above sea level in the Tian Shan Mountains. He believed that the country's elite were benefiting at the expense of the people and the environment. Many locals shared his views. Over 30 years of mining-based economic model, the extraction of natural resources became perceived by the population as another source of the elite enrichment. Asel Du Loktavia, a researcher at the Kyrgyz capital Bishkek, focused on the politics of resource extraction, he told Al Jazeera. They believe that investors, together with the elite, seek to enrich themselves, plunge the resources, and go away as soon as the resources are emptied. The extractive industry provides only 3% of jobs nationwide. The mines are being exploited, the resources are being emptied, the government is getting richer, but local communities, despite some development and charity projects, do not see a direct impact on their lives. At the same time, there are concerns over the environmental damage caused by the mine. The waste is being stored on glaciers, and according to estimates, after the exploitation of Kumtor ends, it will weigh 1.8 billion tons. It will remain there and influence the environment. Glaciers are one of the sources of water from the Kumtor River, which flows into Taragai River and then to the Naran River, Sir Daria, the biggest transboundary river of Central Asia. Kalia Moldova Zia, an expert in environmental protection, told Al Jazeera, "We have spoken against the Kumtor project from the very beginning because it is located in the glacier zone. Glaciers melt due to global warming anyway, and in Kumtor they are additionally affected by the anthropogenic factors. But you give the government control over the mine, what are they going to do? Well, they're the ones that write the rules and make the rules, the environmental regulations. Well, are they going to heed their own regulations? Or will they do the best thing and just shut the mine down if they're so worried about the environment?" It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But there is some minor support for Japarov. In February 1995, Murat was not prepared for the job. The temperature was negative 45 degrees Celsius. That's negative 49 degrees Fahrenheit. When his feet first touched the mountain that was meant to be Kyrgyzstan's pride. The dry, freezing wind at 13,123 feet above the sea level made it hard to breathe. "I have never seen anything like that before. We felt like we were on another planet," said Murat, who's 59, who worked the Kumtor for 8 years. The company bosses, invited us for dinner in a hall that looked like a restaurant. Then they gave us canned Coke. It was the first time I saw it. He quit in 2003, and by that time he had managed to build a house in the Isekul Lake, where Japarov hails from, and supported his relative for many years. Working Kumtor was hard, Murat said, but the company was a fair employer. Well, it's amazing they give him this side of the story. Overtime was paid double, safety was always a priority, and he was grateful that he could work with the newest technology. All right. I'm glad they're showing another side to this. We received medals for every 5 years, clothes, gifts. They were good to us, and at the time we were only thinking about ourselves, our families, money. Everyone wanted to get rich. But over time, Murat changed his views. Of course. Today, he is happy with President Japarov's nationalist reform agenda because he doesn't work there anymore. It no longer provides support for his families, of course. Kyrgyzstan was not ready for that. We agreed for gold extraction a bit too early. Our technology was not good enough to operate high in the mountains in the cold. Now we deserve Japarov. We're done with the lies. Murat shows pictures from his Kumtar years. A nostalgic mood takes him over. Soon after, he reaches out for a small book, poems and Japorov written by his supporters while he was still in prison. May Sadir be released. He will get the work done. He was punished for no reason. If someone like him comes to power, he will clean our country of dirt. Look at the size of that. Oh, there it is. It's very interesting indeed. So there's a lot of play here. You can see both these sides can kind of, but this obviously is showing kind of one side of this. But again, my thought is that something like this, you allow private enterprise with some regulation and to be able to work in the environment, in the area to extract gold, and but preferably a company from inside your borders. And obviously, Kyrgyzstan just having pulled away from Russia, they didn't have, after the fall of the Soviet Union, they didn't have the resources. So the Canadian company helped to really propel the economy there. And now they are essentially going to be taking on that back by nationalizing this mine. Will they close it down? Likely not. Will they adhere to environmental regulations and policies? Likely not. Will they pay as fair as the Canadian company did? Likely not. We'll see how it all plays out. Very interesting indeed. And what are your thoughts in the comments section below? I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.